Cannonball!
Been like this all day.
Did you rub my lamp?
1,000 generations to the Nina. Here we go.
Hey, how's it going, everyone, and welcome to another FilmSpeak live Q&A. A little bit impromptu here. I just, I figured I didn't do one on Saturday, and I just wanted to kind of hang out, chat with all of you, have a great time talking movies, and talk with a couple of my friends as well. But if you're new to the FilmSpeak channel, thanks for tuning into this. It's kind of a weird video to join on because it is just a very casual, laid-back live Q&A. But I'm, of course, your host, Griffin Schiller, and here at FilmSpeak, we like to say that the conversation continues after the credits. And of course, if you want to be a part of that conversation, consider subscribing to the channel for more insight, analysis, and interviews behind your favorite movies. And I am not here alone. I am joined by two incredible guests here. First of all, Mr. Jared Buckendall from J-Buck Studios.
What's going on, Griff? Thank you so much for inviting me over to this, kind of laid-back, impromptu. If people don't know, I'm actually just sitting on my futon because I was streaming over on Twitch, and then you were like, hey, you want to jump on a live stream? And I'm like, as long as I don't have to move my setup, so here we are.
Yeah, and I'm happy to have you, man. It was great. We were chatting a little bit before here, and it's always nice to just like sit back, have a conversation with you, and hopefully we can just continue doing that here.
Nope.
And
we're on camera now. We can't.
We can't. We're gonna be really fake and phony now.
Wow.
Wow. So how about that? Anyways, and then we're also joined by Mr. Mike Johnson of Real School. Mike, we didn't talk to you before we started this.
No.
Literally, as I was playing the intro, you joined. But how are you doing?
I'm good, man. You know it's impromptu when Mr. Michael Wynn Johnson doesn't do his hair. So
that's true.
This is really
got to throw the hat on.
Oh yeah, this is like, no, people can't see me like this. This is a disaster. But yeah, it's all good.
Well, here's the thing: the past couple of videos, you've actually had the hat on. I think for our Mulan review, that has been targeted by weirdos all over the web.
Really?
What a weird video to target, right?
Huh.
Mulan. I must have gotten paid off because I liked the film.
Right. Exactly.
Right. Even though we gave like 20 minutes worth of reasoning as to why we liked the film.
Yep.
It's so fucking stupid. Yeah, but anyways, but you had your hat on for that one, so I'm getting kind of used to seeing you with the hat. I will say it is strange because I feel like you and I have like switched like positions here because like I'm usually the one with the hat and very like gross, haven't showered or whatever, and now it's you.
Yep. I didn't even get dressed today, so this is kind of like I'm wearing my maple leaf pajama bottoms at the moment because I have to be reminded of how much I'm a loser. So I wear the Dallas hat. The cowboy hat and the maple leaf pajama bottoms because I just like to stay humble. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like I can't get too full of myself, and I got to remind myself of the teams that I cheer for heartache and all that misery that they bring me. But anyways, it's good to be here, guys.
Yeah, it is. I'm gonna be 100% honest. I thought that was a Duke hat, and I was like even more confused. I was just like, what? Like why? Like I mean, sure, they're good at college basketball, but like. Mike, really? Do you watch college basketball?
No, I do not.
Yeah, I didn't take you for that. I thought you were just like an NFL and NHL kind of guy. That's it. Nothing else. Anyways, hopefully you all watching are enjoying this. Start sending in your questions. We'll take as many as we can. There's really no format for this, so start sending them in. If you want your question answered like immediately, you can use the super chat option. It's available to you, not required, but it does help out the channel, and we greatly appreciate it if you choose to go that route. Before we start in on the questions, though, what have you guys been watching recently?
For myself, I was going through my calendar of like Netflix stuff because again, I get stuff a little bit early. I just watched, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the comedian Catherine Ryan. She has a new kind of limited series coming out Friday, called The Duchess. So I just watched that. It has some pretty good laughs in it. So,
she's one of Canada's greatest exports.
Yes.
Very few people know about her, but she made
greatest exports.
And the funny thing is,
in England, so
I didn't know about her until maybe a year and a half ago, and then I've watched her specials and everything, and she's very funny.
Absolutely.
I'm not really familiar with her or her work, but I trust Mike whenever he says they're one of Canada's greatest exports.
We have so few sometimes, you know. So.
Well, let's be real here. You have Ryan Gosling, you have Jim Carrey, you have
Keanu Reeves.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
Justin Bieber.
Right. See, that's what I'm saying about it. Yeah, we just draw the line right there.
Wait, hold on. You have Ryan Reynolds too. I mean,
we do.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yes.
So
I would even go so. I'm not even a fan of his work necessarily, but I would go Seth Rogen. Seth Rogen has brought hours of entertainment to people. You can't take that away from him. So we've got a weird kind of niche when it comes to these awesome celebrities, but few and far between. But when they do show up, it's nice, and we always claim them too. Canadians are
of course
super proud of that fact, so we always have to address it.
I mean, fair enough. You also have Rachel McAdams, the Cronenbergs. So yeah, you have a lot there.
You have half of Hollywood, essentially.
I mean, if we're being real. Yeah. But Mike, what have you been watching?
I just really been enjoying the first 3 episodes of The Boys. Binged that in one night. That was great. I was looking forward to that, and felt the first couple were a little slow, but the third one definitely picked up. So I'm looking forward to the rest of that season. And I was actually rewatching Mortal Kombat from 1995.
Hell yeah.
Yes, because it was celebrating its anniversary in the summer, and I'm doing kind of a think piece on it, because that's just one of those films that I think has still aged beautifully, and is still arguably the greatest video game adaptation out there. And so I was just kind of checking it out and seeing how I felt about it 25 years later, because 15-year-old Mike, the best story is that I was sick when that movie came out, Blockbuster or something like that. So I was sick at home. I was in high school, and I watched that thing 6 times back to back, just in a row. I couldn't get enough of it. I didn't see it in theaters, but when I watched it on DVD at the time, it was fantastic. So
man,
I'm gonna
wear
be
that
honest.
DVD out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Mike, I'm gonna be honest. That is like the last film I would have expected you to like be obsessed with as a kid. Like that doesn't track.
It's just one of those things that 15-year-old Mike was very different from like old, bitter 40-year-old Mike. But
let's pause there. What was 15-year-old Mike really like?
He was a bit of an ass. I mean, the brilliant thing is, I always talk about the cyclical nature of the world. Karma is a bitch, and I totally believe in karma. And I am now a high school teacher of 12 years, and I can't tell you how many 15-year-old Mikes I've come across. and I mean, like 15-year-old Mike almost got suspended. 15-year-old Mike forged his parents' signature on a report card. Yeah. He had some growing up to do. The good thing is back in my day anyways, we had grade 13. We had what was known as OAC. So we were in high school up until the time we were like 18, 19 years old sometimes, right? Whoa. Which actually helps mature you for first year college or university, right? So they, for some reason in Ontario, really just wanted to force teenagers to be in high school for another year. So the good thing is I had 3 more years to grow up. And in that time, I definitely grew up a bit. But yeah, grade 9, grade 10, Mike was, bit of an ass. So
wow, that's I didn't expect that. I don't know. Maybe I can see it.
A little bit. It's still there a little bit. Yeah.
I don't know. For some reason, I'm picturing, and again, Mike, I don't know you too well, but I'm picturing, Mortal Kombat, either skateboarding or inline skating too.
Neither.
Okay.
And the funny thing is, I am so anti-Canadian in some respects because I didn't play hockey. I never skated. Outdoor sports for me were like soccer and football. That was basically it.
Wow.
So I wasn't a skater at all.
You were Americanized. You were Americanized
you were
Canadian.
definitely.
Exactly. Yeah. So
what the hell? That's so weird. But well, anyways, that's interesting. You learn something new every day about people on the internet. So, all right, let's get into some of these questions here. So, Mike Media Inc. I'm sorry, Jared, got to throw this one out here first. But Jared Buckendahl, can you make up porn names for your favorite movies?
Well, I mean, there's so many out there, like Forrest Hump. There's I can't say one of them because I'll probably get in trouble. Diana Jones. Like, there's so many of previously done one. Yeah, you've ever heard that one? No?
That's so good. I didn't even know that was a thing. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot that I probably shouldn't say here on a public live stream.
What would you do for Mortal Kombat?
Mortal Comeback?
I was literally about to say, yeah, that's the only way you can
I mean,
go with this.
it wrote itself, essentially.
Yeah. Oh, my God. That's a good one. Mike, do you have any off the top of your head? Are you quick on your feet like that?
I'm trying to think of, thinking of a Canadian film that we could... No, I got nothing. Now the Canadian comes out, I go, no, that's too impolite.
Yeah, people in the chat shaving Ryan's privates, of course, a classic.
Love it.
Classic. That is a classic. All right, Zach Pope asking, what comedy did you expect to hate but absolutely loved? I don't know. Who wants to take this one first?
I can go first.
Right.
So I remember Mike and Dave Need Wedding Dates. Expected to absolutely hate that movie. Waited until I think one of the last weekends in the movie theater. It was the cheap Tuesday night. And I was rolling. I was crying, laughing so much. And I don't know if it was perfect timing, perfect mood or everything. But, I mean, that movie, I think Rotten Tomatoes-wise, not rated too well. But I loved that movie.
Yeah, Mike, you got one?
I would go with Trainwreck. I am not an Amy Schumer fan at all. And so... when that came out, I used to watch her show too, right? And until I kind of learned about, hypothetically, she may have stolen some of the jokes or borrowed heavily, I kind of lost all respect for her performance. And basically, when that movie came out, I went, okay, so buckle in for this one. And I didn't see it in theaters. I watched it just on TV when it came out. So it was that far after it had come out. Also, being from Toronto, having LeBron James in a movie, that's like having the devil, because basically he beat the Raptors 6 years in a row in the playoffs. So, we hated him. But anyways, that was, Bill Hader can do anything. And
that's true.
He was good enough. The movie was charming enough. I admitted I chuckled. John Cena was funny in that, which I didn't expect. So it was just one of those okay, that was solid. Got to give respect where that is. So.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a whole bunch that I'm not thinking of, but I think the two that come to mind are Neighbors. I actually thought Neighbors was really well done. I did not expect it. I thought it was just going to be another, just Animal House ripoff. It would be stupid. Actually surprised me there. And then, did either of you see Tag?
Yes. Yeah.
That was a pleasant surprise. I didn't expect anything out of that, but it was actually kind of charming and funny,
Yeah, especially when you hear the concept. It's adult men playing tag. You're right. Okay, yeah, here we go.
All right, yeah. Yeah, no, it worked. I don't know, and I thought it was just because there was an actual heart to the movie. I think that's the thing. A lot of these comedy films, you can have the stupidest idea in the world, but if there's an actual genuine heart to the middle of it, I think you can sort of get past the absurdity of it, which unfortunately the Love Guru did not, and that's why Michael Myers, that's why Mike Myers is still in actor jail and has been, unfortunately, for the past 2 decades or so. Okay, Ethan White, unpopular opinion: Dark Knight Rises is way better than Batman Begins. Does anyone share that opinion?
I might say yes, because I have only seen Batman Begins through once. I've seen bits and pieces here or there, and I don't know. I just feel like that one, especially the end scene where it's supposed to be Gotham, I don't feel like it blends too well with the other two movies. Maybe I'm crazy.
So I was actually having this conversation with my friend Brody the other day, and we were talking about the fact that The Dark Knight almost ruins Batman Begins and The Dark Knight Rises, because The Dark Knight Rises is an excellent sequel to Batman Begins. I do think it's more in line with the first film than it is The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight is just too good for its own good. I mean, to put it frankly, that's just really, I think that's why people were disappointed with The Dark Knight Rises. For me, given the day, The Dark Knight Rises actually might be my favorite out of the three, just because a good ending will really reel me in. And I think that has one of my favorite endings of all time. It's just it wraps up that trilogy beautifully. So I actually agree with this one, but I can understand why people would prefer Batman Begins. I think it's just a more consistent movie, and it's probably the best Batman film we've ever gotten. Whereas The Dark Knight is it's a little bit more than just a Batman movie. So I don't know, Mike, where do you kind of land on this?
Yeah, you kind of hit the nail on the head, I think, with that one, because first time I saw Dark Knight, I wasn't quite sure what to think of it, because it was Nolan, doing what he does and kind of adding genres and kind of forcing things into a comic book film or whatever kind of movie that he makes, that he's kind of known for now. So Tenet is a perfect example of how he was like, I'm going to make a spy thriller, but it's going to be completely science fiction as well. So this, until I got to the point where I went, oh, so The Dark Knight is a gangster movie. It's like Godfather, but it's a comic book film. Then I kind of wrapped my head around it and I went, oh yeah, that is brilliant. But when I watched it the first time, I wasn't really sure what to think of. Batman Begins, I give credit for being very straightforward, really, for lack of a better term, grown-up storytelling. And I'm not saying The Dark Knight isn't, but it was just like the most mature comic book film I had ever seen.
Well, and the other thing is like, people complain that Jack Nicholson steals the show in Batman 89. Catwoman and the Penguin are featured more prominently in Batman Returns than Bruce is. Batman Begins, and the Schumacher films don't really dive into Bruce Wayne all that much as a person. Batman Begins is legitimately the only film that explores Bruce Wayne as a person and his psyche and what caused him to like don the mantle of the Bat. So I just I think that's the thing that like I always love about it is because it's a Bruce Wayne movie. It's a true and true Batman movie.
And more importantly, if you can put a couple cast members aside, and I only mean like one or two, look at that cast too. I mean, if that cast were announced today, it's kind of like the way we're doing with Pattinson's Batman, where we just go, man, it gets better and better every time they announce somebody. But if, I don't know if you guys remember, I'm not sure how old you were, but, Michael Caine is announced as Alfred. People are like, whoa, okay. But, Cillian Murphy as Scarecrow is just perfect for some...
And they brought him back for multiple films. It's like not every villain needs to be like the upper echelon focus of the film. No, you bring them back in these small little like annoying roles.
Just little pieces,
Oh, yeah. And I hope that's what they do with the Penguin in Pattinson's film.
Yeah.
Good call, yeah. And you know what? Liam Neeson as Ra's al Ghul, I think, is just inspired as well because, I grew up on the animated series. So when you think of Ra's or Ra's al Ghul, I was like, of course it's Liam Neeson. Like, of course. And he had the look was perfect. So much about that was, I think, just spot on. So
I don't remember the trailers, but was that ruined or spoiled in the trailers or any marketing?
Not at all. I think it was one of those things that, we were kind of in the early stages of the internet at that point, or at least, films had really started to become talked about and that kind of thing. So I think, it's kind of like what had happened. I'm trying to think of another movie that came out recently. Oh, it was, with Star Trek Into Darkness. And people were like, well, he's Khan. Like, he's got to be Khan, right? And everybody, the studio's like, no, of course he's not Khan. And then, of course, the movie comes out. It was that kind of thing where we were like, okay, well, who's Ducard, right? Like, this is clearly Ra's al Ghul, right? Like, look at the mustache. And so everybody's looking at it and they go, yeah, of course it was. So one of those things, but it didn't take away from it because, again, it was the first time we got to see the character on the big screen. First time we got to see this, kind of battle of wits, which is, in a sense, part of Batman we didn't get before. You know what I mean? Like, Batman was always kind of super powered, even though he wasn't. The villains were always, kind of over the top. So all of a sudden we get this battle of wits, this battle of skill and strength, and we get that detective aspect, which I think we're going to get more of in Pattinson's Batman. It was just that really grounded thing that obviously defined the trilogy. And that's why I was kind of blown away by it. And I go, that was an amazing movie. So,
yeah, I think the other thing is as opposed to the Batman films that came before it, it felt like in this one, Bruce and Ra's al Ghul were sort of like in a moral in a battle of like morality, I guess, because I didn't, every time from the first time I saw that, I was like, I kind of get what Liam Neeson is saying in here. I kind of get what Ra's is saying. Like, he's clearly a fanatic and he's like an extremist, but like there's truth to what he's saying. And there's like something so likable about him. And I think that's why the casting of Liam Neeson in that role is so perfect, because only Neeson could be a villain, but then also be a likable guy that like you kind of understand and want to root for, even though he's very much the villain. But the cool thing about the Ra's al Ghul thing was that, for me, when I saw this film in 2005, it's one of the most impactful theater-going experiences on my life, because I believe I was like 10 at the time in 5th grade. Went to go see it with my dad. I was actually kind of scared at some of like the nightmare stuff with the scarecrow gas and stuff like that. But and my dad loved it, and I think that was one of the reasons why we really just sort of like connected over that. But I didn't know who Ra's al Ghul was. And so, like, not understanding that, like, this whole, like, Ducard thing and, like, him saving him, I was like, oh, okay, cool. So there's, like, his setup, and then the main villain for the rest of the film is going to be Scarecrow and Falcone. No. And then Liam Neeson kind of comes back, and I was like, oh, shit, that's so cool. And I think they did a great job of that one guy sort of, like, making him up to be like the theatrical Bruce Wayne, or not Ra's al Ghul and stuff like that. So I don't know, that was like, I like stuff like that, because I'm sure if people hadn't seen a Star Trek movie, if people hadn't seen Wrath of Khan before seeing Into Darkness, well, okay, there's a little bit of a problem there, because I feel like the reveal in that film doesn't carry the weight, because what is Kirk's sort of like, he has no connection to Khan. It's more of just like an audience thing, which is stupid, because if that's anyways, I just kind of dismantled my own argument there.
Let's talk this through, okay?
Let's talk this through. Yeah. No, but you know what I'm saying, though, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a problem that J.J. Abrams has as a filmmaker, because you look at The Rise of Skywalker, Rey being a Palpatine means absolutely nothing, because no one knows what Palpatine is. They're just like, oh, he's the Overlord from the original trilogy. No one's actually ever interacted with him. And so it's just like, it's stupid. Anyways, moving away from this, we spent way too much time on that. But Bryce Bailey with the super chat. Thank you, Bryce. You're doing a great job on the site. So really, I want to give a shout out here to Bryce. He's one of our contributors, regular writers over there, staff writer, if you will. He's consistently pumping out amazing news articles, and he reviewed New Mutants last week. Bryce is someone you want to keep your eye on. He's got a great voice in this space, and so hey, Griffin, just want to stop in and support the channel. Keep up the amazing content. Thank you, Bryce. Really appreciate that, dude. All right, so going back to the questions here. Let's see. Okay, Jaron Talks Movies. What is the movie you label as the one which made you fall in love with film? I'll go first on this one, just because I have my answer, and it's not very like fun or nice or whatever, but it is like the one that sort of just like has stuck with me, and I incorporate this into a lot of like resumes and stuff like that, so it's fun. But the one for me is The Phantom Menace. It was the first Star Wars film I ever saw. It was a big ordeal, because like my uncle made me like watch the film. He's like, dude, you gotta watch this, like it's so cool, or whatever. And so like, I don't know, for whatever reason, it just like, not even for whatever reason, I mean, it's Star Wars, so it's like obviously going to have an impression, and it had an instant impression. I was sort of like swept up in the magic of it, and watched the rest of the Star Wars films, fell in love with those as well. And so Phantom Menace for me was the one that really was like influential on my life.
I think for myself, I mean, over the years, there's probably been quite a few, but I'm trying to track it back to kind of like, your breaking, or the inception, like, Griff, you're having your Phantom Menace where you're probably a young little boy when that happens. I think my dad, he loved the Indiana Jones movies and had like the box set. And we didn't have too many movies, so he would always be watching those. And I think that original trilogy just landed with me, where we would sit there and watch the like 6 hours behind the scenes of how they made everything and how the films came together. So I think that it's honestly those.
Yeah. Indiana Jones was up there for me too. I mean, it was like that, and Star Wars were always on repeat on like Saturdays and Sundays and stuff like that. But I don't know, Mike, do you have one?
Yeah, well, you know what? I don't know if I can pinpoint the one that made me kind of fall in love with film, but I can pinpoint the one that made me get into studying it and eventually try to be a writer. Because I was probably just after, asshole Mike grew up. I was watching Scream 2 on DVD. And I, believe it or not, thought to myself, I think I can do better. And I never did.
Whoa,
but
all right.
Damn, just throwing the gauntlet in.
But you know what? The funny thing is, now that I've seen that film so many times, I think that's actually my favorite out of the trilogy is Scream 2. And that's one that nobody likes. But yeah, it was one of those movies that I'm watching and I'm going, oh, okay, I don't even necessarily, I wasn't into horror movies, but that was a movie where I kind of went, well, I think this is going to happen, and then this is going to happen, and then like this character is kind of like this archetype, and so I was old enough to realize, you know, certain patterns and things like that. So it was the movie, and I will say inspired me. It's not like I was like, Kevin Williamson, what a jackass, I can do better than him. But it was the movie where I wrote my first movie because of Scream 2, and it was a terrible 90s ripoff of all of those slasher flicks that came out in the mid to late 90s, called Apartment 209. I'm pretty sure I have a copy somewhere. It's god awful. Yeah, I will. Yeah, there you go.
Is it on the blacklist per se?
Yeah, I'm really curious about this.
Yes, for some reason. But it was like just god awful. And so that's the funny thing, is that was definitely the film that inspired me. Just because, and maybe it wasn't like I can do better, but it was certainly, I could do this. I could write this. So yeah, that was the movie that made me study a lot more about the craft. So interesting.
I just want to bring up the fact that you said that people think Scream 2 is the worst out of the films.
I've seen that so much. I
love it.
And me so too. Good. And you know what's great about that? Again, being a 90s kid, like, or a kid that was at least a teenager in the 90s, you know, I look at that and I go, that movie's got the who's who of 90s stars. Like, it's got Sarah Michelle Gellar, the guy who played Pacey, Josh Jackson, right? Like, just in small roles too. So like all of these actors who kind of had made it big in the 90s are just like little throwaways, like Portia de Rossi's in it, and it's crazy. Like, it's just like, so it's fun to watch for a lot of reasons. And I like the twist at the end. I don't know. I don't know why people didn't like that movie, but
I mean, like, in a series of films that are very meta about the genre and poke fun at it, what do you expect the sequel to do other than be very meta and poke fun at the notion of sequels? Like, and that's just
the most meta out of I think all four of them. So
like three takes it a little too far. 3 is the worst out of the bunch, and like I enjoy it, but it's also just like one of those where it's like, really, like, okay, I feel like I was a little too on the nose. Where in the previous ones it was like more. It was more tasteful, and then I think he got back to it with 4, which I really like 4 too. 4 is fun, but I don't know. It just gets me thinking. It's like, what are the horror tropes of today that they're going to sort of like make fun of? So I don't know. I'll be curious to see what happens with Scream 5. But all right, next question here from Tony Movie Chappie D9 Neil Blomkamp #1 fan. I love saying that name. Hey, Griffin, after I graduate, I want to be an independent film director, directing my own short film. Any advice you would want to give me? I'm going to defer to Mike, who is the only one of us that actually went to film school. So,
okay. Yeah. Well, you are speaking to a guy who, you know, became more and more afraid of LA the longer he was there. But geez, advice. Just do your own thing. I mean, it's so much, I won't say easier, but it's so much easier to make your art and get it out there today than it was 10 years ago, or when I tried to become a writer 14 years ago. Just because we have access to all this brilliant stuff. Everybody has a computer and everybody has an iPhone or a smartphone. So you're already one step up, I guess, in the previous generation of filmmakers. So I would just say, do it for the love of it. You are going to work a job that you probably don't really want to work for the rest of your life, but that's quite literally, I think, every success story of anybody who's been a filmmaker out there was a bartender at one point, you know, an actor who was a server, you know, like all this kind of stuff. So just do it, just make it, because that to me is the journey, and that's the best advice. And eventually, once you have a bit of a portfolio under you, you know, put them into student film festivals, or not student film, there's small film festivals, local film festivals, work your way up, because, you know, I know from experience now, like a lot of things like South by Southwest, even TIFF and Vancouver Film Festival, they've got these things for, you know, up and coming filmmakers. It costs almost nothing to submit. You know, you will hear a lot of no's, but don't worry about that, because it's just like, I guess, the three of us on YouTube, that you often hear no's and you often get rejected, and don't worry about it, right? Just get to the point where you build up your portfolio, you start to develop your skills. And then basically, yeah, you might get to the point where, you know, an agent might want to look at your work or can help you out, get you gigs. And those gigs are kind of the next step up, and you start all over again, where basically, you know, you're directing commercials or music videos or something like that. But just create, keep going, pocket those ideas. Like I said, I have that terrible screenplay that I wrote 16 years ago or however long ago it was. Just do your thing, man, and get it out there. YouTube's a great spot sometimes for these fan-made films, and we've seen them all, and some become massive, but you're gonna find an audience. And I think that's the great thing about today's age, is you don't have to release them in theater in order to get an audience, and you get a following, and you just go from there.
Thank you for joining today's TED Talk, folks, and we will catch you next time. Take care. I'm not even going to add anything to that. It was immaculately said. Very well done. So hopefully that gave you a lot to kind of go off of from there. Okay, Zach Marsh is in here. Thanks, Zach, for joining in. Hey, Griffin, I'm trudging through the David Lynch version of Dune for the first time in over a decade, and I regret this decision. Please convince me to stop. I mean, you see, Zach, this is all in your hands. You put yourself through in this situation. I think all three of us would have told you no. The best thing you can do is erase this film from your memory and wait until the Denis film comes out later this year, and then view it like you're watching the movie of Dune for the first time. Mike was so offended by that statement that he left the stream.
Or he's going to go watch the film right now as we speak.
Absolutely. So, yes, that is... Well, there he is. What did you do? Did you get mad that we told you that you can't watch David Lynch's Dune anymore?
I was like, how dare you besmirch the name of a Patrick Stewart film? I don't know. It was just one of those things where I was like, enough is enough. No, you brought up Denis, and then I was like, well, you know, again, it's that Canadian content that if you bring up the name of another Canadian, I have to drop off to make room.
Yep.
So that was my apologies. Yeah.
No, so that's totally fine. Anyway, Zach, stop watching David Lynch's Dune and go do something better with your time. You're tuning in here, so you're already doing something better with your time. So thank you for that. Okay, Hector Gonzalez asking, have you ever seen Richard Linklater's film Tape? I have not. Have either of you?
Nope.
Doesn't ring a bell, no.
Sorry, can't answer that question because you haven't seen it. Okay, and then Hector Gonzalez, favorite film adaptation of a novel you also enjoyed? Man, that's tough. It's probably cheating to go Casino Royale because, I mean, I think it's an excellent book and it's one of my favorite movies of all time. So, yeah, I think and it's a solid adaptation, even though it's not like trying to strictly adapt that novel. But do you guys have ones that you kind of go back to?
This question actually came up a while ago, and yeah, Casino Royale was kind of my cheat one that I used. I'm going through a list right now, so give me a quick sec if, Mike, you have an answer.
Easy answer is I'm thinking of ending things. No, I'm kidding.
I know you love that film. You loved it. A solid 5 out of 10.
That's right. Yep, and that was being perhaps nice.
Actually, Jared would know probably better than anyone else because I had him help me edit those videos. So he had to watch you just sulk and get upset.
Yep.
Go on about the whole
just
thing.
On and on and on. Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I apologize to Jared then. Basically, I would say there were two that did well. One which was, they both made changes to the books, and I would just say that Fight Club was really well done to capture kind of the gist of the book, but be its own film. Because Fincher, ironically, went for a little bit more of a Hollywood ending, I think, with that movie, which doesn't really fit the motif of the film, but it is what it is. And Jurassic Park, because I read Jurassic Park when I knew that they were going to make a dinosaur movie, and I had never heard of the book before because I was pretty young, but read the book and then had nightmares for a while because it's pretty graphic. Thank you, Michael Crichton. But I was prepared for the movie. So, yeah, and I thought both were really good. So, and I mean, as a kid, reading Michael Crichton, that's a nightmare on its own. So I think he did a pretty good job.
What's more terrifying, reading Michael Crichton's version of Jurassic Park or watching.
Yeah, the Dune. I knew you were going to ask that.
No. I was going to say,
okay.
or watching Jurassic Park 3.
Oh. You know what brings back a reason to watch Jurassic Park 3 now is that when we were at South by Southwest and we saw The Art of Self-Defense, the guy who plays, the main teacher is the guy who played Billy in.
He steals the raptor's eggs.
Exactly. And
Wait, that really?
That's the same dude.
And he's grown up, obviously. But when I looked him up, I was like, "What? That's Billy from that third movie?" That movie that's ridiculous. I mean, that was one of the first movies where I began to question movie logic. And the first and foremost part was, why would you create flying dinosaurs? Like, you knew that was going to be a problem. Like, we couldn't contain a T-Rex. But you know what? Why don't we make ones with wings that can easily get away? I was just like, what? They made pterodactyl. Anyways,
in their defense, they put them in a bird cage.
Yeah.
The perfect defense, right?
Duh,
yeah.
Come on.
I have to say, as ridiculous as that line is, Sam Neill sells it. It's a bird cage. It's actually
it's like, okay.
Yeah, and listen, I just watched all of the Jurassic Park movies in order over the past couple of days, and so I've had I've had a lot of thoughts about that franchise as a whole, and I think it doesn't get much worse than Jurassic Park 3. Mm-hmm. And I think that Fallen Kingdom is criminally underrated, so you all can take that to the bank.
I don't know, the Lost World when she uses the art of gymnastics to kill a dinosaur, that's kind of jumping the shark or jumping the T-Rex.
So I love that film. I am a massive defender of that movie. That's unforgivable. That is actually they had to bring up the fact that she was a gymnast in the beginning of the film just so they could be like, well, she's gonna kick that velociraptor right out the window.
Head. Yep.
And that was silly.
I love the Lego video games because they very much made fun of that scene too, where they're the raptor is doing gymnastics too with her in that scene in the video game.
Yeah, I love those games because it takes you through all the movies and you get to play through the scenario. It's basically the Lego games have become the new movie video game because they're cheeky and they're they follow the beats of the movie, but it's just you just go around and just being little Lego figures and stuff. I don't know, it's fun. I've always enjoyed that. And the Jurassic World one. Did they come out with another one when the second Jurassic World came out?
I'm not entirely sure. I'm sure that they've added it on because I know that they've released the Star Wars one 27 times. They have every new episode into it.
Right, which they're doing again.
Yep.
Soon because for whatever reason people want to play through The Rise of Skywalker because watching it wasn't torture enough.
I want to play through that in solo. Come on, let's do this.
Oh man, yeah, I'll pass on that one. Hector Gonzalez again asking favorite Hollywood classic film. Mike, you're the oldest, so you go first.
I'd go North by Northwest. You want to talk about old school Hollywood, right? I hope that people consider that a classic. If they want older, I studied Preston Sturges when I was in film school, and I loved that kind of old school, clever writing. So It Happened One Night, I think, is probably one of my favorite because it's just that really classic sharp wit. They rehearse so much that every line is like, hey lady, what are you doing here? Well, I'm taking a bath. Why are you taking a bath in here? I just love those kind of movies.
I do too, yeah.
And it's the kind of movie that inspired later writers like Sam Raimi would write like that in some of his stuff. The Coen brothers are really known for that kind of work because they love those movies too. And once I had realized that later on, those are a lot of fun for sure.
Yeah, Jared.
Yeah, I'm going through this list of Hollywood classics, and this is the spot of cinema I have not seen a lot of them, I will say that. So I'm going to say Wizard of Oz. That's one that I feel like I watched growing up quite a bit, and the only one that was on that list that I've seen.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I love the classic Bond films for sure. From Russia with Love is my favorite out of the Connery era. But I also think that part of the reason why I love those films is because Terrence damn, why am I blanking on his name? Terrence Young, the director who did the first 4 Connery films, he borrowed a lot of filmmaking techniques from Hitchcock. So those films kind of feel like, North by Northwest style, like globe-trotting spy movies. So I would have to say either North by Northwest or Vertigo, Vertigo is one of my favorite films of all time. And I think it's absolutely beautifully written and has a lot of interesting subtext that has sort of evolved over the years. And it's the only time that we get to see Jimmy Stewart play an absolutely vile and disgusting bad guy. And he excels at it. So, leave it to Hitchcock to do that. But it's I love that. I love that film so much. But North by Northwest is really close because that's my second favorite Hitchcock. Real quickly here, I saw that Ryan McQuaid is in the chat. Thank you for joining, buddy. Team FilmSpeak, yes, indeed. So he says, I'm going through a David Fincher rewatch in anticipation for Mank. Ryan, you should write about this for the site. I think maybe you could do some retrospectives and stuff like that. Why not? Have at it. But what is your favorite and least favorite Fincher film? Hashtag Team FilmSpeak. So, Mike, I'm going to start with you.
Favorite, if you're familiar with my channel whatsoever, Gone Girl is still one of those movies. And this, I'm going to have 2 surprising answers, I think. Gone Girl, we had spoken about, movies that didn't necessarily live up to expectation, or surprised us. That's the better way of saying it. Movies that surprised us. That was one that surprised me. I didn't know what to expect. And in my review, I even called it Hitchcockian in the level of execution.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, it's brilliant the way it was written, the way it was executed, the way it was developed. I read the book after, which is something that's kind of a weird thing to do, but it inspired me anyways. And everybody's performance is stellar in that. That's another one of those really underrated casts. I mean, Kim Dickens is fantastic in almost everything she does. Edward, I'm trying to think, what was the guy from Almost Famous, the kid? I want to say Edward something.
No. Pass.
Patrick Fugit. I wasn't even close. It's Patrick Fugit. Anyways,
okay.
So yeah, just a kid that shows up and I go, oh, it's the kid from Almost Famous. And he's amazing in the movie, right? And you haven't seen him in like a decade. But so that speaks to the script and the direction. But yeah, it was just absolutely brilliantly executed. One movie that I think is kind of similar to, we were talking about it before, similar to, I'm thinking of Ending Things in the fact that I can appreciate it, but I didn't like it, was Zodiac. Ooh. And that's my least favorite Fincher because...
Wow.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of people say. Like when I say that, it's one of those films that, once again, that I think is brilliantly executed and well written, but it wasn't just the subject. It was... I don't know. It just seemed to me like it wasn't his best directed film. It was more technical than it was the actual story for me. And I think a lot of people are the opposite. They love the story and they love the characters more than they love the execution of the film. I think it also doesn't help that I was in a terrible relationship when that movie came out. And the girl I was dating at the time hated the movie. And she turned to me and basically said, I think it was probably the second murder scene, she was like, do you want to leave? And I was like, oh, I'm not really a fan of this movie. And she goes, well, we should go. And I just looked at her and I said, well, no, I don't walk out of movies. And that kind of caused a huge fight for the rest of the night. Yeah.
What the
so
hell?
it might be negative association, but I've watched it since, right? Like she wasn't around. So it's still one of those movies where I go, yeah, it was ambitious and it was well executed, but no, it's not rewatchable for me. I don't get caught up in the performances as much as fans of the film do. So yeah, that was my least favorite.
That's crazy. I think that's like top 3 for me. I think just because he's, for all intents and purposes, I feel like he's basically making a true crime documentary, but using fictional like set pieces and actors. And I loved that approach to it because it's so realistic to the point where like the film ends and there's no real resolution because that's just life. You know, like we don't actually know who the Zodiac killer is. He doesn't give you an answer. He doesn't like put a face to the the murderer, or the serial killer. And I just think that's I don't know. It's really the film as a whole is really bold and ambitious because it is. It's more about chronicling, what happened and like how these people reported on it and how it affected these, particular individuals. And it was, and it's like 2.5 hours and it's like with no resolution. I get it. But I mean, I get why the masses didn't necessarily gravitate towards it, but I think it was also like necessary in order for us to get Mindhunter,
Well said. Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's one that I've always just really appreciated. But again, like what you're saying, like if someone doesn't really care for it, I can't really fault them because it's just like 2.5 hours of investigative journalism with no resolution. That's really what it is. But yeah, I don't know. Jared, favorite and least favorite Fincher?
Oh yeah, I mean exactly just what you guys said. I love Zodiac, and it's that kind of thriller, kind of mystery, and the unknown, and exactly like what Mike said. He doesn't really like the story, and I think that's what grasped me the first time I watched it. I love it. It's a very long movie, but I just love the places it goes and the creep factor and whatnot. Man, Mike, I'm sorry, but if I was dating someone and they told me to leave the movie theater, I'm done right then and there.
Oh, we were done pretty quickly after that. Yeah.
Oh my God, I cannot even imagine. But
bad.
It's funny. Gone Girl, I loved that movie, but a similar situation. I was dating someone at that time where I think we had a fight prior, and I think she had a little cuckoo side, and I was scared she was gonna murder me or set me up or something. So we didn't talk for a little while after that movie because that one definitely sat with me for a while.
Wow. So is that your least favorite?
No, not my least favorite. That's just a funny story
okay.
comparison to it. I think I pulled up David Fincher films. Did he do Curious Case of Benjamin Button?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with that one.
I like that movie.
That one just
It's that movie was one of the most overhyped pieces of garbage I think I've ever seen.
Just strange.
It's just not good. It's boring. I don't even know if I've finished it, if I'm being honest. I've tried to watch it at least 3 times and I've not gotten all the way through. It's rough. And listen, like I'd probably, if it wasn't Benjamin Button, maybe I'd put like, well, I mean, Alien 3 is kind of the default. But like, Panic Room. Panic Room's really good, but like it just, when you compare it to some of the other stuff, I just, it doesn't quite, match it. I'd say his most underrated is Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. And unfortunately, we never got a proper sequel to that. I don't know what happened there. That movie was an Academy Award nominated film. So, like, where was the... anyways. I'm in a similar camp to you, Mike. Gone Girl is my favorite. It's, like, the perfect kind of, like, crime, psychological thriller, mystery box, whatever that I love, that I think that he really, really, really excels in. And it's just like, I remember watching it for the first time and just like all the twists are coming. You're just like, oh my God. And it's just one of those, like, it's a really exciting movie to watch that I think was not only got cinephiles on board and professionals in the space, but like the masses loved it just because it is that, like, it's the fictionalized true crime thing. And I haven't read the book, but I'm glad that Gillian Flynn wrote the screenplay because I don't know if the film would have been as good had she not. And Ben Affleck is perfectly cast. There was a reason why he is cast. He has some parallels to Nick Dunn for sure. And then Rosamund Pike, I think, should have won the Oscar, if I'm being quite honest.
Can I also throw out, that was my love affair. That began my love affair with Carrie Coon, who I had never seen in anything before. And I mean, when she played Go in that movie, and then she was in Avengers, and I was like, I know who that is. And like nobody knew. It was, anyways, fantastic cast for sure.
No, I definitely agree with that. But again, least favorite, Benjamin Button, and then if not that, Panic Room probably in there. Just speaking of, did you guys like The Game? I think that is such a good movie that no one talks
I was gonna
about.
say that's probably probably my second, because I remember I had never even heard about the film or anything. I randomly recorded it for my DVR, and I was enthralled by what the hell was going on and the weird, essentially the game that is going on in the film.
Yeah, it's oh my god, it's such a and Michael Douglas gives a great performance in that movie. In the mind games, and when you get to the ending and you figure out what's going on, it's like this is so messed
It's bonkers,
up.
man.
It's so bonkers. It makes sense why that's in the Criterion Collection for sure. That's like one of those films where I'm like, all right, yeah, I get that.
One of the greatest compliments, sorry if I can jump in, that I ever got was from a friend after he knew I went to film school, and he had read a couple of my scripts when I wrote it, in high school. He saw that movie, and we had caught up because we were both in college, and he said, "Did you see The Game?" And I said, "Yes, I loved it." And he goes, "I just watched it like randomly." And he's like, "I thought to myself, that's the kind of movie you would write." And I was like, this is like the greatest compliment of all time. And I'm like, I never even got close, but thank you for thinking that.
Why, Mike, where's the sequel to The Game, man? Come on.
Yeah, it's
Like,
The Game 2.
It's The Game
Even
2.
gamier.
Even gamier.
Oh my gosh, The Game fully loaded.
Yes, there we go.
Or reloaded or something like that. Zach Pope going off of the Carrie Coon thing. Carrie Coon is so underrated. She's amazing in The Leftovers. She is amazing in The Leftovers. That show as a whole is criminally underrated and underwatched. So, let's see. Let me go back here. I know I'm skipping over some, but I'll get back to them. John Early, hashtag Team FilmSpeak. Speaking of James Stewart playing in likable people, what do you think of Stewart's performances in Rope and It's a Wonderful Life? Both films have Stewart being kind of a jerk. Well, I would say in It's a Wonderful Life, the jerkish nature of him is very understandable. I feel like many people would probably act in a similar way to him if they kept having their life taken from them.
Yep.
But it on the flip side, the beautiful thing about that movie is that like he didn't need all of that to have a good and fulfilling life. I mean, he did so much for others, and I think there's a lot to be said about that. I mean, that film, it brings me to tears every single time. Frank Capra is a genius. But in terms of Rope is like probably my third favorite Hitchcock film, if I'm being honest. That is a great movie. That's not only like technically influential on like, the whole one take thing, but like it's just fucked up. It's like guys talking about murder as the body is in this case that they're like eating food on. It's like really warped and so well written, and Jimmy Stewart is great in it. But I don't know if he necessarily plays an unlikable character. The two guys that commit the murder, these like frat guys who commit the murder, are really the people who are disgusting, and then Jimmy Stewart sort of starts to catch on to it. But I don't know. Did you guys think that he was a jerk in either of those films?
I've never seen this Rope movie that you speak of, but people eating on top of a body in a case, it has my appeal. I'm very curious on now what's going on in this movie. But The Wonderful Life, I think that, yeah, he's kind of a dick here or there, but it's part of the story, like he's supposed to be.
There was something about early Jimmy Stewart as well that I think a lot of people forget, is that very early in his career, he did play kind of a bad boy more often than we think, because I think with It's a Wonderful Life being the most accessible and memorable film that a lot of people remember him in, is that basically he had that clean cut image because, he did serve in the Army, and he did, or the Air Force, I think it was, or the Navy. Sure, let's just name all three.
All of them, yeah.
He served in all three. It was amazing. He was a Marine. I don't know how he found the time. So that basically he was this kind of like all-American boy, right, who served his country and was clean cut. But, there was a lot of stuff that he did. Thin Man as well. Oh, there you go. Zach Marsh just talked about it. Said,
"Oh, the Thin Man in there." Yeah,
and absolutely right. There were times where people gave him a chance, but yeah, early in his career, like even with the Philadelphia Story, which again kind of goes back to those quick-witted, like guys battling it out for the love of Katharine Hepburn. He was a little bit of a dick in that movie. He was a bad boy. He was a guy who like didn't care about the upper class, and he was kind of a jackass. So yeah, he played that fairly early on, and then became more and more clean cut. And then occasionally, yeah, we would see Vertigo or Rope or something like that, where all of a sudden we go, oh, he's got an edge. You got to think of like Tom Hanks. Like Tom Hanks was really kind of an innocent goof early in his career, did a lot of comedies, and all of a sudden he takes some darker turns, and people are like, what's going on with Tom Hanks? And then we realize he's one of the best actors of our generation. Similar thing with Stewart, where like once in a while they would throw him something and people were like, oh yeah, this guy can really bring that darkness too. So
I think that is such an apt comparison. They are very, very similar, just in terms of how the public perceives them, because it's like, oh, everyone loves Jimmy Stewart. Like he's just he's the good old American actor, America's dad at the time or whatever, and Tom Hanks. But like he can go to those dark places for sure, and I think Tom Hanks definitely can do the same thing. I feel like it was like Mr. Smith Goes to Washington and being George Bailey in It's a Wonderful Life. Those are like the films that really and even like Harvey, it's just like those are the movies that really was like, okay, listen, he's a sweet guy. Let's let's cast him in more like lovable, middle-aged guy roles. Like, I don't know, but yeah, it's interesting to sort of just think about his career in general, though. Okay, Mr. Goated asking, is Mulan good or garbage? I have a review actually saying that Mulan is the best live-action Disney remake, and I hate just the idea of live-action remakes in general. But they actually did a good job with Mulan, so I got to give them credit there. So that's probably my favorite. I don't know about you guys. Where do you kind of land on that?
I have not seen it, but I'm curious. Do you now want an animated remake of that remake?
Absolutely. And then let's do the live action remake of that animated remake.
Infinite money.
Yeah.
Disney Inception.
Yeah, there it is.
Well, you know what? I'll say kind of briefly what we talked about in that review is that the reason that I liked, and I give it an 8 out of 10, which I almost never do. Griffin pointed that out.
Mike gave it a higher score than me. I give it a 7.
Yeah. The reason I did that, though, is exactly what go after me. Exactly. It's kind of what Jared had said. Like, they do all these stupid remakes, the cyclical pattern, but the fact of the matter is every single one we've had thus far has just been an inferior, almost shot for shot remake of the original. So why do you do it? This movie wasn't trying to be the original. I think that's why people hate it. They said, well, like, where was the music, or like why wasn't there a dragon in it, and all this kind of stuff. Get over that, right? This was finally Disney saying like, yeah, we're doing a live action remake, because it's the same story basically, but it's still not. Different characters, 21st century kind of edge to it. So it's one of those things, you just got to move past it. I mean, like, if you're so attached to that original Mulan, watch the original animated Mulan. Don't bother with this movie. I think a lot of people came in already knowing they were going to hate it. And it was the same kind of thing, like Griffin just said, like, we don't want all of these live action remakes, but they're doing it. So if they're going to do it, do more like this, where it can stand on its own and it's a different movie. And that's why I totally appreciated it.
Yeah.
Now, I'm curious. I have not seen this. I'm curious box office financially how it's going to do, because moving forward, I wonder if this will be a force of them doing a remake but making it different, or they're like, that didn't pay the bills. Let's go back to what works.
I feel like they can't really judge it off of this film because of the unique release of it. But I will say, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that it's doing very well on the platform. Again, they only needed like a quarter of their subscribers to purchase the movie, and they'd have their money back. Disney Plus has plenty of subscribers, so I imagine that it'll do very well in the months to come before it eventually is free on there. But yeah, I don't know. I like it, and I actually think that the $30 price tag isn't bad. So take that as you will. Okay, let's see. Large Anna is saying ban TikTok. Well, if Trump has his way, it'll be gone here soon.
The thing is, not to bring it dreary, but I was alluded to some information, a news story about that, and I instantly deleted it today. So,
your TikTok?
Yeah.
Wait, why? Let's talk about the news story. This is interesting.
It's very graphic and sad, but apparently someone had taken a live stream of a Facebook video of someone essentially committing suicide, and it was on TikTok.
And
a lot of people saw it.
That's so bad. Oh man.
Yeah. And again, I didn't want to bring it down, but that's why I deleted it.
No, but I mean, that's fair. I totally get that, not wanting to be associated. Yeah, I feel like that platform is probably going to go away very soon. Whether we want it.
Well, actually, that sets me up for this weird thing. On Wednesday, there is a Netflix documentary that comes out called The Social Dilemma. I recommend everyone checking it out because it dives into kind of social media and how it has changed over the last 10, 15 years and the drastic effects it's had on, or it has had effect on kind of society and stuff. Just sure, it's maybe framed in a certain perspective of wanting you to think a certain way, but I think it's interesting to just watch and to kind of educate yourself a little bit about the dangers of potential social media.
Yeah. It's actually because I hadn't heard about that until I saw your review on it. I was like, oh, what is this movie? So, yeah, listen, Netflix has good docs that they just don't promote very often. And I think that hopefully that one gets more traction because I think just the concept alone is really interesting. Okay, so kind of going off of the live action remakes thing, Knight Rider wants to know what our favorite Disney live action remake is. For me, it's Mulan. I don't know, Mike, is that your favorite as well?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay, Jared?
I think, I lean towards Beauty and the Beast just because I have a very soft spot for Emma Watson, and that was one that I don't think I really watched too much as a child. So, when I went into it, I was like, okay, sure, I see some of the comparisons, but I'm like, this is kind of essentially new to my brain. Lion King, that's literally the exact same movie. Somehow they added 20 to 25 minutes. I don't know where, but they added it.
Yeah. I mean, I guess for me, Beauty and the Beast has never worked for it. I don't know why. It's got great production design. It felt artificial, I guess is the best word. But again, I don't think they've really I like Mulan, but I'm still waiting for them to just freaking knock it out of the park with one of these. And I feel like they're gonna need a film like The Black Cauldron or Atlantis or Treasure Planet or The Hunchback of Notre Dame, the films that were on the lower tier, rightfully so, or unrightfully so, or whatever. The fact that they're just there kind of puts them in a position where it's if people are gonna make a remake of them, then I don't know. I assume that they'll do it justice or something like that, and it'll introduce to a whole new audience. So I don't know. I'm kind of waiting for those to get really excited.
I like that idea of Atlantis and kind of Treasure Planet. A lot of people have brought that up in the last few years, and I would love to see that because those were two that, like you're saying, the bottom edge, almost these ones that came out in this weird time that it was a transition from 2D to 3D, and they were just forgotten.
Yeah, for sure. Damon in here is a patron on our Patreon. Thanks, Damon, for joining. Hey, everyone. I'm just wondering when you took your pee break during Endgame. Mine was Hawkeye in Tokyo. I didn't take a pee break. I sat there however many times I saw that in theaters. Never once peed. So, did anyone else take a pee break?
Nope. I luckily prepared myself before. I went during the trailers. I think I counted 3 trailers. I'm like, I gotta go now. Came back, saw the last one. I was like, I'm set. Let's do this.
I just did it like an Air Force pilot. I wore an adult diaper and I was fine. So.
Perfect.
Listen, here's the other thing. I feel like I just remember that being a whole debacle. Just oh, it's 3 hours. What are you gonna pee? When are we gonna use the bathroom? I'm just guys.
Did you pack a snack?
Oh my god, how are we gonna do this? It's just guys, people have been making 3-hour movies for years. What did you do when Lord of the Rings Return of the King came out? Did you complain about that? Did you take your pee breaks in there? It's just nothing against you, Damon, but it was just the way the internet sort of just went oh my god, bathroom break.
People needed headlines and people needed to be mad or angry or upset about something. They're like, when am I gonna pee?
Yeah, it's stupid. The Geeky Gator. I moved into college today and there was already a 100-person party.
Hell yeah.
On campus. Good Lord, man. What is a movie you wish would just end while watching it?
I love the setup there.
Yeah, wait, what are the...
I love it.
Great correlation.
That's really funny. Great. One, I'm really sorry that happened to you because people are fucking idiots and college kids are some of the dumbest people out there, even though they're literally going to school to get educated. What is a movie you wish would just end while watching it? Oh man, probably Hellboy, the 2019 Hellboy. Ooh. I really wanted that to end. Pan, again, it's some of the worst movies I've ever seen. I really hated Joe Wright's Pan. Man, I feel like there was one recently that really just like I hated, and I wanted it to end so bad. I mean, The Tax Collector was up there. I didn't like that film. I don't know. Do you guys have one?
Yeah, surprisingly there's one that I can't talk about yet. I just watched it last night. But Netflix.
Well, what is it? Is it a Netflix film?
No.
Is it Antebellum?
Yeah.
You can talk about that. The embargo's already up.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. Yeah, that movie was that was not a good movie.
Yeah, that's what I've been hearing.
So there's that one, Coffee and Kareem on Netflix. That was really bad. And then Artemis Fowl was, just a chore to get through.
Yeah, I don't know. Mike and I think we're a little too soft on that movie in hindsight.
You know, people.
Did you guys like it?
I didn't hate it. No. It was. I mean, it was. We didn't like it, but I was like, yeah, it's fine. I don't know.
Yeah, it is what it is. Some people were saying it was really funny how we interviewed Kenneth Branagh, and then we both disliked the film. And they're like, why would you do that despite meeting the guy? Or like, because he's probably not going to watch our reviews, but more importantly, because he made an okay film, like a subpar, you're going to call him on it. Like, Branagh could be better than that.
Sure, yeah.
my answer to that is a little bit different, just because it's never a movie that I'm like, I can't wait till this is over because I hate it. Although often that ends up being the case. I end up watching movies that I just want to get to the end because I have no clue where they're going. Mm-hmm. So I would say like The Happening was one of those movies where I was like, how is this going to possibly end? Like, how can you wrap this up? And then recently, man, I've been really ragging on this film. I'm thinking of Ending Things. Was it a perfect one where I'm like, when is this going to end? Like, what's the ending going to be? And then you get to the dance scene and you're like, no, seriously, when are you going to, like, what's happening?
Oh, man, that's the dance scene's when it reels you in. You're just like, we're going now.
That's it. And I was like, you picked it up after 2 hours, and now all of a sudden I have to get invested. So to me, it's always morbid curiosity more than it is a hatred of a film that I just want to end, right? Yeah, it's just like, okay, how are you possibly going to end this? So those two are pretty good examples, I'd say.
I'd also throw out Transformers: The Last Night. That was a movie that couldn't have ended sooner. Oh man, that was. I legitimately had a migraine headache from watching that film.
Were you out within the first 5 minutes when Merlin's like a drunk?
That was weird. I wouldn't say it was immediately out, but that was like the beginning of the end.
You're like,
for me.
That was I don't know about this.
It was like from there, like going on, it was just like a giant, just like dip downward. I was like, yeah.
It's looking at your YouTube analytics of attention rate, and it's just like
2 minutes and gone.
Yeah, it's like
that's so
done.
true. And it's kind of weird because I've been like wanting to revisit that series just to see like if they're really as bad as they were, and I'm dreading it because I don't want to watch 5. I really don't want to watch 5, but I don't know. That movie was so bad. Anyways, thank you for your question. Tony Movie asking thoughts on Godfather 3 getting a director's cut. I don't know. It's like a couple of decades too late, but sure. Let's like I'm cool with it. It's not a good movie, so. Is that cool? Does anyone have anything to add to it?
Why? Like, honest to God, why? I mean, there's a reason why, because it was a terrible movie. So, but is Coppola going to say after the success of the first 2 films, is he going to say what? The studio got in the way? Like, come on. You know what I mean? Like, what do you need a director's cut for? You were Francis Ford Coppola. You had just made 2 of the greatest American films of all time, and you're telling me, like, that was somebody else's fault. That to me, yeah. The fault lies in him for casting his very talented daughter, who's a talented director, but not a talented actress. And that cast was terrible in that movie. There's a lot of things where I go, you know, Francis, if you want to do a director's cut, you got to travel back in time and recast that thing and re-edit it. That, you know, like, anyways. So a lot of issues with that movie.
Do you think he has enough footage to, like,
what are you going to do with it? I mean, honestly,
I have no idea.
The story wasn't the problem for that film for me.
Yeah.
I think the story was a really good way of wrapping it up, right? And like, obviously with Michael kind of, you know, well, not kind of, coming to the end of this story, you know, and the whole stuff with Andy being the new boss, I thought was good too. So it's just, you know, the story wasn't the problem. So how are you going to re-edit this?
Yeah, that's true.
It's just weird. And like you said, way too late, man. Like, you know.
Oh, I know. And I mean, listen, I know that, like, it took a long time for the Richard Donner cut of Superman 2 to come out. But I feel like it's a different situation, because that's, you know, similar to Snyder's whole Justice League thing. There was like a lot of studio interference, and like Donner wasn't able to make the film that he wanted to make, so he had to like compromise there. They brought in like someone else to like literally redo like some of the stuff in his films. But and I guess, you know, it being like the 70s, or when did Superman 2 come out? Was that 70s or 80s? 80s or whatnot. It was like there was really no concept of, oh, we can go back and, you know, make a director's cut of this. Right. So I get why that one took so long to come out. Godfather 3, that was all Coppola. Like, that was just like, it's like, I want another shot here, guys.
That's all
please.
It is.
It's I don't know. I'll be curious to see what happens, but I don't think it's going to change my opinion on the movie. Arjun Charvut, I'm sorry if I just butchered your name, but Arjun asking thoughts on the movie Heat. It's one of the best crime films of all time.
Is that the one with Sandra Bullock?
Yes, The Heat, as some people call it. Yes.
What a duo.
Yeah. No, I really like that one. I mean, that one's like, what a freaking long movie. I mean, when are you going to pee during that one? But that one is, I remember watching that, I think in college for the first time, and I loved it. I mean, it is a sprawling movie, but I loved the back and forth between De Niro and, is it Pacino in that?
Yeah, and an underrated Val Kilmer with the ponytail.
Yeah.
Oh, God,
solid
that
cast
ponytail.
all around.
Yeah, it's it's great. It's like the epitome of crime films, which like that's Michael Mann. Like that's just what Michael Mann does, and I love it. So I saw this at the bottom. So Zach Marsh saying, I've heard they're changing the ending of 3, which I strongly disagree with. The final 15 minutes of 3 is perfect. Well, then why are they changing it? Like, I just don't like.
We need to make it worse.
Michael doesn't just like die and fall off the chair. When he does, he lands on a landmine and he explodes. Like, oh, why? Oh, he can't even have a funeral. You know, like, why touch that? This is what I'm saying about this whole thing. Why even touch this movie? Yeah. So the movie's not perfect, but the movie is what it is, and it has been a part of what it is. Nobody is going to argue that the Godfather trilogy is still not one of the greatest trilogies of all time. So changing this one isn't going to change people's minds. So they're not going to be like, that's the one you should have made.
We got to go back and reevaluate our list now.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Crazy.
It's not going to work. John Early asking, I heard Mulan getting compared to Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman, and somebody said that Mulan doesn't have a single action scene that compares to Diana's crossing no man's land. I just reject that they are even remotely similar. I feel like in Mulan, they take her ability, her power, and her chi, and they make it just like a part of her. Like, it's just like the special thing that like is her personality that she's forced to repress. And I feel like anyone can relate to, so, you know, not being accepted for who you are. And so I didn't look at it as her being like, you know, just like an all powerful person who has to learn or like, you know, you can only be special if you have powers. That's definitely not what they're getting there. The chi is a little bit more metaphorical than that, in my opinion. I don't know, Mike, if you took it that way, but
no, I agree with you. They're not even remotely the same. I think again, people are grouping them together because they, you know, feature strong female leads. You know, like I saw a recent YouTube video about how they felt that with The Boys, with Stormfront being a woman.
Oh, yeah.
Like, here we go again. It's all woke Hollywood. And I was like, move
What?
on, man. Like,
Come on.
what year
It's
is
2020,
this?
people.
Exactly. So I think that's, again, what people had problems with. And we spoke about that, I think, in our review anyways, right, Griff?
Yeah,
that we had said,
yeah, we definitely did.
You want the love story? Go watch the animated one and relive the 90s. Like, you know, if you want one where a woman's not defined by a dude and can be a role model for, you know, young women at the same time, then watch this one. Like, to each your own. But
yeah, you have two. You literally have two versions you can choose
exactly.
from. and they tell like similar. They're different enough to where it's like, you know, if you enjoy one interpretation more, there you go.
Yep.
So I don't know. It's ridiculous that that's even a thing. Okay, so moving on to Ryan McQuaid asking question for Griffin. So in the No Time to Die trailer, the phrase "the mission that changes everything begins" is mentioned. Does this mean Bond dies and a new character takes his place as 007? No, I don't think so. They might have. I don't think so. Craig might die, but if in Bond 26 they would just reboot it with a new person playing James Bond. That's just how it would go. I don't think. I think the mission that changes everything begins. I have some spoilery sort of thoughts on that I don't really want to get into for people who just want to go in as blind as possible. But I feel it's more. I don't know. It's different. Let's put it that way. But no, I don't think that he's going to die and someone else is going to take his place. That doesn't. The draw of the franchise is like Bond. Like, people love those films because of the character, what the movies sort of are, and all that stuff. So, and then follow up to that. If not, who is your dream person to play James Bond? I'll defer to one of these gents first.
Oh God, Mike, you can go if you got something.
Sure. We've had this question before. No, I still don't know. I have no idea. It's tough because I always want somebody who is relatively unknown. Like, Daniel Craig wasn't all that well known when he got cast. And I think with these huge movies, and I've said the same thing about Marvel and DC, it's better service for the character if it is somebody who is not associated with other characters. I think Chris Evans was kind of the only one that kind of got away with it. Maybe Robert Downey Jr. But you know, when Chris Evans was cast as Captain America, first thing everybody said online was like, why would you do the Human Torch as Captain America? So that's the kind of thing where blank slate is better, which is why I probably don't have an answer, because I would much rather it be somebody who I'd have to look up and go, okay, yeah, maybe he can do it. Or, yeah, I remember him from this, rather than pick, you know, somebody who's already fairly well known.
Yeah, that blank slate idea, I like that, because then there's no like exposure to the person beforehand. I mean, I'm sure that this person's one of the people that's been on multiple lists, but like I kind of want like maybe a little switch up and throw Henry Golding in there or something. You know?
Yeah, Henry Golding's someone that I'd like to see for sure. Maybe take over the role or whatever. You know, for me, it would be a dream if Michael Fassbender got to play the role. Unfortunately, I think he's too old now. Idris Elba's too old now. Richard Madden is still at the top of my list for who I'd like to see play the character. Just go watch his work in Bodyguard. I feel like that is like the perfect audition tape for it. Dan Stevens probably could use the role because I feel so bad for the guy because he is uber talented, but he has never been used correctly. Like, he just, and thank God he switched his agent, because I just, you know, what Call of the Wild, I mean, like some of those other indie films that he was doing, it was really disappointing to see a guy of that stature and that like just amount of sheer talent not get the rise to stardom that he deserved. But so maybe him. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of like what Mike says. I'm down with an unknown for sure. Like, that's definitely the best route for it. And some of these guys like Henry Golding, like Richard Madden, I think are like, they're only known for being in like one thing. They haven't really like, you know, broken out of the mold. Like Henry Cavill, it would be kind of weird seeing Superman play Bond. As great as it would be, I don't know if it would work. So, but then again, you know, like Roger Moore, like was a really well-known actor before Bond, but then Bond sort of like turned him into what he now is like known for. So I don't know. It's an interesting thing to think about. Okay, we'll take a couple more here, and then we'll start to close out. Just kind of continuing on the Bond trend here. John Early, between Pierce Brosnan's Bond and Daniel Craig's, which do you go back to more often? I think I prefer Skyfall over GoldenEye. So, which films do I like more? Craig's films. Which ones do I just legitimately have on repeat in my home? The Brosnan films. Like, they're just... I don't have to pay attention too much to them. I flip them on. Like, I think I've watched Tomorrow Never Dies more times than I can count. It's ridiculous, but I don't know.
Yeah. I really like the Daniel Craig ones because I feel like they're more. It's evolved with the times essentially, but the Pierce Brosnan ones are 100% nostalgia. Reminds me of the N64 game. Reminds me of me as a kid essentially. Like Griff, you're saying, I've watched those ones more than any of the other Bond movies combined, I'm sure, because it's just so goofy, and like you're saying, I don't have to pay attention, but if I want to watch the part where he skis down the hill and like shoots a guy or something, then sure, I can look up from my computer. Yeah,
for sure. Mike?
Yeah, exact same answer. Yeah, I won't even add anything.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things. It's like, I don't know. Watching Casino Royale and watching Skyfall and Quantum is like that's a task. You know, it's not an easy thing, especially if you choose to watch Spectre. That then becomes even more of a chore. So, yes. All right. So let's take a few more here, maybe like two more, and then we'll start wrapping this up. I see Knight Rider has been asking this question here, so I want to make sure we get to it. What's the funniest Deadpool moment for you guys? For me, it was the X-Force landing.
Ooh. Because the thing is, this is very much my humor. Like Deadpool, I love because it's everything. I'm immature essentially. I don't know. For the one that always I quote is like, we're about to put balls into holes, but they're playing what do you call that game?
Let's put some. Oh yeah, it's skee ball. They're playing.
Yeah, there we go, skee ball. Yeah.
It's time to put some balls in holes.
Yeah,
it's great. I don't know, Mike. Do you have a? Well, first of all, I don't know. Where do you kind of land on the Deadpool films?
I like them. I actually said the Deadpool 2 may arguably be, and this is definitely a hot take, one of the best X-Men films or X-Men related films. Because I just felt it was, again, what comic book movies need to be more of, which is unapologetically themselves. It's just like, this is what we're all about, and if you don't like it, don't watch the movie, right? Something DC definitely needs to embrace more and more, and they have been touching on it, which is good. So that really surprised me because Deadpool 1 I was like okay with, and then Deadpool 2 came out and I was like, I'll give it a shot because why wouldn't you? And it was hilarious and it was a lot of fun. And my favorite or funniest moment, I think, the ending of Deadpool 2 where he shoots himself in the back of the head and he says, "You're welcome, Canada," I think is fantastic. But to me, I laughed the hardest in the first one because it was like a really underrated kind of nerd line that you have to know the book and the play, which is when he says, "Yes, Virginia, there is a Santa Claus." And I laughed so hard because nobody got that joke. And it's a joke about blood, let's put it that way, which was just so ribald but so intelligent at the same time. And so I'm laughing my ass off, and everybody else is like, I don't even get it. Like they kind of found it funny because he's doing his Ryan Reynolds voice, but I was like, that's such a funny reference that like nobody got. So that one is good. I think the funniest one for me was when he was like, "Are you there, God? It's me, Margaret." And he's like cutting off his hand. Right.
God.
That was
same.
I had like I can't even imagine just like it's like, who the hell is gonna get this? This is like such a deep cut. But yet it plays like, everyone laughs. They're like, why is everyone laughing? I'm laughing too. And I'm like, no, it's just actually a really good deep cut. I don't know. And as someone who's like kind of like lesser on the Deadpool films, I got to admit that like some of those lines are like genius. It's like, where the fuck do you pull those? Like, it's like, who thinks of that?
Yep.
All right, we'll do one more here, and then we'll close out. I think we're gonna close out with Zach Marsh's question here. Who is your favorite actor director, Jared?
Oof. I mean, though, I might have to look up a list, but the one that's popping off is he was in Tenet, Kenneth Branagh.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's really... he's underrated, I think. I think just because, everyone always thinks of the Shakespeare stuff and like the early days of his career, but I don't know.
I mean, in my mind, it's popping to, and it's newer, is just the her crow or whatever from Murder, and then the trailer for Death on the Nile and stuff like that character. I'm just like, Poirot. That is him exactly.
Yeah, no, that's a good. Yeah, for sure. Mike,
I have to go with my boy Batfleck.
He's really good.
Yeah, because he takes a lot of crap for when he doesn't succeed, and he hasn't as an actor. And I think the funny thing is, he used to be the butt of jokes. Like, you can even consider Family Guy did a joke about, how he and Damon sat in a room writing Good Will Hunting, and Batfleck was just like getting high in the corner, and Matt Damon was doing all the work. And now I think everybody has realized, no, dude is a solid filmmaker, really good storyteller, underrated in terms of being a director, even though obviously he's won awards for it. But still, I don't think people kind of give him the proper shot. And, I think somebody even said, like, this year, he may arguably have given one of the best performances of his career in the way back, and I agree with that. So it's just one of those things where, he's one of those guys that I think still, being a huge name in Hollywood, sneaks under the radar for some reason in both respects, being an actor and a director.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely like in my top 3 for sure, but I don't know. Like, I think, first of all, I think Ben Stiller is really underrated as a director, especially just, comedic, like comedy wise. I mean, he did Tropic Thunder, like Zoolander, and and even
Heavyweights, man.
Yeah, Heavyweights. Yeah, it's kind of like, it's nuts, and I don't always think of him as a filmmaker, but like I think he's done more filmmaking in the past decade than acting, which is kind of crazy. I just miss seeing him in stuff. But I don't know. Mel Gibson is really, really good, and it's like, regardless of like your opinion on the guy personally, I feel like he's just I don't know. He rarely misses. I don't know. What would you say is like his worst film?
That he directed or that he was in?
Yeah, no, that he directed. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's really tough. I can't
remember his filmography now.
Yeah, I can't think of one that's like flat out bad too. But we were talking about Sofia Coppola a little bit earlier on, her brief acting stint. I think she's an incredible filmmaker. But yeah, I don't know, man. I think I might have to go Batfleck for right now. That would be my go-to. Also, shout out to Jon Favreau. Jon Favreau.
Good call.
I mean, like, the dude has really just like become the big. I mean, he's the big studio guy over at Disney, but like he is truly like a visionary, and I think he's doing a lot of filmmaking innovation in the way that like James Cameron used to a little bit. So I'm glad that we have someone like that working on movies. But anyways, guys, that is going to do it for today's impromptu live Q&A. Thank you for those of you who asked questions, who sent in super chats, who came and hung out with us for a little bit, an hour and a half here on your Labor Day. Thank you to my 2 guests for joining me, Mike, Jared. Jared, where can everyone find you?
Yeah, no, Griff, obviously, always a pleasure. Thank you so much. And Mike, have a good time talking with you as well. You guys can find me on YouTube at JBox Studios. I'm doing a bunch of reviews, and I do a series called Ending Explained Poorly, and a bunch of other stuff. I have a live show on Tuesdays, and I feel like I'm always on FilmSpeak talking Lovecraft or questions or anything else. So jump over there and find me there. Otherwise, social media at Jared Buckendahl.
Yeah, for sure. And Mike, where can everyone find you?
As always, on the major soch under Real School with 2 E's, and as managing editors on filmspeak.net.
Yeah,
you've seen all the amazing people that we work with that have commented and stuff, and it's really shelling out some solid content for sure.
And you have you've been doing a lot of great interviews for a podcast that we haven't launched yet, but
right.
you have a good one coming up this Wednesday with Noomi Rapace for her new film.
Also true. Had nothing to do with my podcast, but yes, also true. So I got to research her. I've got 3 interviews in the next 48 hours. So I'm going to be a busy boy. But yeah, stay tuned for that podcast as well.
Yeah, for sure. Like, seriously, you guys are not going to want to miss that. Vocal cues over on FilmSpeak. It's going to fucking kill it.
I'm very excited for that promo you put out.
Yeah, right? Oh my gosh, with Billy West. So good. So good. But yeah, guys, if you haven't done so already, be sure to like this video, share with your friends, and subscribe to the FilmSpeak channel, where we like to say the conversation continues after the credits. And of course, we'd love to have you be a part of that conversation. You can like FilmSpeak on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, just search FilmSpeak. And lastly, if you like me specifically and you like what I have to say, you can give me a follow on Twitter at Griff Schiller. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this live Q&A, and we will catch you next time. Take care.
This all day.
Did you rub my land?
1,000 generations living here now. Here we go.